most of the pieces that were on those teams are still there. So I'm not saying the Jets are going to be Super Bowl contenders with Justin Fields, but I think I'm a little higher on them than most people are.
Interesting. Well, we have ESPN's Rich Cimini on the line, a certified Jets expert. He's been at Jets camp. Going to hear a little bit more of the intel of what we've seen over there. Rich, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. Starting off, we touched on Aaron Glenn a little bit earlier, but what have you specifically seen at Jets camp going into the preseason now? How have you seen him kind of change the energy in practice and in the locker room and just the general culture of the team?
Yeah, definitely a stark difference from the previous regime. Practices have been more physical, I would say more intense. They did some live tackling, which I know people will laugh and say, well, it's football. They're supposed to tackle. But as we know, the NFL has changed over the last 10 or 12 years. Very few teams do actual live tackling in full pads. They did that for a couple of days. And so I think that's a big difference. You don't see players taking veteran rest days. You know, everybody practices. If you're healthy, you practice. And so I think that's another difference. He's just raised the intensity, and I think, according to a lot of players, just created a higher level of accountability, which I think was sorely lacking in the previous regime.
Hey, Rich, this is Kurt, and I wanted to just ask the question that I had was, who's your standout from Jets camp? I know we talked about how physical everyone's been, but there has to be some players that people might not be watching that all the experts are seeing right now.
Yeah, that's a good question, Kurt. I would say, and I'm going to stay away from the obvious names, I mean, like Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, but I think a guy like Will McDonald has really impressed this year. You saw him take a big step forward last year with 10.5 sacks, and he's really had a good camp. I liked what he's done. And here's a little bit of a surprise guy. I know I was surprised. Brandon Stevens, the cornerback they signed from the Ravens, got a big contract, and quite frankly, I was critical of that move. I just didn't think he had a very good year last year, and I thought they overpaid for him. But I got to be honest, he's looked pretty good in camp. Aaron Glenn called him one of the most improved players on the team. So he's another guy they signed. Much like Stevens, he didn't have a great year last year for Jacksonville. It was Andre Sisco, the safety. But he's had a very impressive camp, very physical safety, good ball hawking skills. So those are just a couple of guys I would say that have jumped out to me.
What's going on, Rich? This is Joe Henry.
Hey, Joe.
Wanted to kind of parlay that talk about the first couple weeks of training camp into their first in-game performance we're going to see tonight in Lambeau. Obviously, eyes are going to be on Justin Fields, his first time taking the field as a Jet, but other storylines too. I know there's a lot of talk about the rookies in camp, about Membu, Arian Smith, who are going to play tonight. Curious as to what it might be specifically that you're looking for tonight in evaluating how all these new Jets are going to acclimate to playing as a Jet.
Well, of course, I'm going to be looking at Justin Fields. He's had a very up-and-down camp, to be quite honest. He's had a good practice on Thursday, but before that there were 3 straight days where you were just kind of, shaking your head a little bit like what's going on here. I'm curious. I don't think he's going to play a whole lot. It may only be one drive, but you're looking for just for him to have smooth operation and get the team in and out of the huddle, avoid the pre-snap penalties, which every Jet fan knows was a huge problem last year and the year before. Get a couple of first downs, maybe convert a couple of third down plays. So that's what you're looking for from Fields. I think Membu's the other guy I'll be really watching. He's going to start for them. I mean, he is locked in at right tackle. They drafted him, 9th overall. So you expect a guy like that to come in and do well. He's got so much talent. You could see it. But he has had a couple of issues with pass protection in training camp. So I'm curious to see how he handles the Packers' edge rushers.
Rich, the Jets, we know, ranked 26th in strength of schedule, so a little bit on the easier side for sure, based on what we know from last year, who made the playoffs last year, etc. What are your thoughts on their ceiling this year? What do you think maybe could change from last year? They went 5-12. What could change? Could they get better? What do you think?
It is actually the front part of the schedule is somewhat difficult. I think their first 6 games are pretty tough. Then it kind of tails off there. But of course, as you noted, I mean, that's based on last year's records. Things in the NFL, it's a week-to-week league. Things could change in a heartbeat in the NFL. If one team loses their quarterback, all of a sudden their season changes. Jet fans could relate to that, of course. So, I think the Jets, I think they'll win more than 5 games. Last year was a train wreck. I do not believe they have as much talent as last year's roster, but I think they will maximize the talent they do have. I think there will be fewer penalties. I think there'll be better situationally, meaning like in the red zone, 2-minute, third down. I think they'll be better in those areas, and I attribute that to coaching. So while I think they'll be a more disciplined, more physical team than last year, I just don't think they have the talent right now to be in the playoffs. So I'm looking at this as like a 7-10 season for the Jets, which, all things considered, I think would be, a step in the right direction.
So, Rich, I was reading an article in The Athletic today about the Jets being built to run the football this year. Someone that Justin Fields has never really been that great at running the ball. I know he is noted for being a great rushing QB, as well as he's never really thrown the ball a lot for touchdowns. But where do you think the Jets' offense will lie this year? Do you think it will be more of a rushing offense, or do you think it will be throwing, or a combination of both, especially with Aaron Glenn now at the helm? Where do you think this Jets' offense will come from this year?
Right. I think it's no secret. It's pretty obvious that the Jets just want to be a physical running team. That's how they want their bread to be buttered. They just want to let teams know that they're coming after them, much like the 09 Jets under Rex Ryan, that whole ground and pound era when the Jets had a young Mark Sanchez at quarterback. They actually ran the ball 600 times that year, which is practically unheard of in the NFL. I could see them doing something similar this year. They have 3 good running backs. They have, I think, the potential to have a pretty good offensive line. And so this is going to be a run-first team. Now, of course, they have to throw the ball. In today's NFL, you can't run the wishbone or run it 50 times a game. You're going to have to mix in some passing. So that's going to fall on Fields. I have some major questions about the passing attack. I just don't think Fields is a great passer, and they haven't really put a whole lot of good weapons around him other than Garrett Wilson. So it's a run-first team, and that's Aaron Glenn is a defensive-minded coach. Defensive-minded coaches usually want to run the ball, and I think this Jets team will.
What do you make of this running back room? It's a super young group. You have a great talent in Breece Hall, but he wasn't spectacular or maybe as efficient as you would have liked him to be on the ground last year. Had some fumble issues too. I know they said that they want to work him into the pass game more. Then you have one of the youngest guys in the game in Braylon Allen. You've got a guy in Isaiah Davis who I thought looked really impressive last year in the touches that he did get. Do you think that that's going to be like the set 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart, or is there maybe some more wiggle room than people think for one of those backups to steal some more touches from Breece Hall?
Yeah, I think you just named the 3 guys in a row in that order, Hall, Allen, and Davis. I think all 3 guys will play. I mean, it's really hard to go with – I mean, Aaron Glenn has said this. It's hard to use a 3-man rotation in the backfield. I mean, just from my experience, yes, you could do 2. I mean, the Lions have done 2, with Gibbs and Montgomery, and that's where Aaron Glenn's coming from. But when you add a 3rd guy in there, it's kind of difficult to get everyone a good amount of touches. So I do think they'll try, but I do think Breece Hall will be the guy who gets the most touches. Like you mentioned, passing game for sure. I could see them trying to expand his role there. I do believe he'll end up being second in the team in catches this year behind Garrett Wilson. And just a little tip for fantasy owners there who are getting ready for their drafts coming up. And Braylon Allen is a guy that Aaron Glenn really, really likes a lot. As between the tackles, 204 pounds, really, pound rock. So I think it'll be a combination of all 3, but I do think Hall and Allen will be the main 2 guys.
All righty, ESPN's Rich Cimini on the line. Thank you so much for joining us, Rich. Grace McCarron, Kurt Sippel, and Joe Henry here. Thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Have a great day.